evening or good afternoon or good morning or whatever time you find yourself in. My name is Garlia Cornelia Jones, and I am the founder and producing artistic director of Blackboard Plays and the producing director of PAL, the Parent Artist Advocacy League. And this is the first BMPFest Playwrights panel. BMPFest is the Black Motherhood and Parenting New Play Festival. It is a partnership between Blackboard Plays and a PAL, and the goal of this festival is to uplift the stories by Black parents and caregivers, and we're interested in the stories about the Black family. And so I am so pleased that this evening we are joined by our four finalists, the four playwrights whose work we are producing. It is all in development for this national and digital play festival, and the significance of having our four partner theaters in different parts of the country is so that we can say this festival is both national and then it's online, and so it is accessible, especially for our artists with families, right? So we can all experience this at our own time. Each of these theaters has a Black parent or caregiver in artistic leadership, and we are so honored to have them as part of this festival. And with that, I am going to hand it off to our moderator for this evening and for this conversation, Dr. Rashida Harrison. I'm so pleased that we get to experience your brilliance in this conversation, and so happy that we were able to meet and connect and just having you as part of this talk means a great deal to all of us here. So with that, I'm going to turn off my camera and let you take the night, and I'll see you all afterwards. Bye, everybody.
Thanks, Garlia. Thank you. Thanks so much for that introduction to the festival. Thank you for inviting me to be a part of this. So I'm Dr. Rashida Harrison. Please call me Rashida. I am currently based in mid-Michigan area. I'm originally from the South Bronx. I come to you as a Black feminist, scholar, activist, mama. And what qualifies me to have this conversation most importantly with you is the fact that I'm a mama of a little Black identifying boy right now. He is 3.5, as he would say. He'll be 4 in 2 months, a little bit more than 3.5. And yeah, that's what I was like peeking at on the side and letting him know that I was about to go on. And we have help here tonight, but also it's bedtime and I might have to pause for a second. So yes. And I use pronoun she, they, and I will just start and ask you all to introduce yourselves and just tell us like where you are, you know, something important about you, before we get into some of the fun questions that were sent to you all.
Hey, everybody. My name is Nicole Santora, and my play is The Last Fresh Start. And it's about 2 struggling Black artists who moved to Paris for a better life. But it turns out they have different definitions of what a better life means.
Hi, everyone. My name is SONHARA EASTMAN. I currently live in Atlanta. My play is called SAHM. It's about an overworked stay-at-home mom who's trying to rule the world. It's something I accidentally became a stay-at-home mom during COVID. So things were very real. Something about me, I struggled for 7 years to have a child. And my daughter was born in 2019, and the pandemic came about 5 months later. So, yes.
Hi, everyone. My name is KEENYA JACKSON. My pronouns are she and her. My play is called Botanicals, or Giving It to God. And it is about an old crotchety man who, is just that neighbor that does something. He's stuck in his ways, and through a tragedy that happens in a police shooting, he finds healing.
Hello, good people. I'm NAOMI LORRAIN. She, her, hers. I'm based in Harlem. I've been here forever, originally from the South, but Harlem is my home now. My play is THERESA, and it's a satirical comedy about a woman named NICOLE, and her parents disagree with how she and her new partner, THERESA, want to raise NICOLE's 5-year-old son. So comedy ensues, and it's a clash of, different generations of parents and parenthood.
Thank you all. So I actually, I generated those questions after reading and thinking through the different themes that I saw throughout your plays. And so as we have this conversation, please feel free to just sort of hone in on those moments that really speak, that are inside of your play, as well as, sort of your larger purview. Okay, so let's start with one of the first things that really stood out to me was in all of your plays, there are these moments where there's this like pause, right? There are these, but those pauses are always associated, or seem to be associated with a conversation with a Black mother figure, and in different moments and in different capacities. And so my first question for you all, and anyone can start and we can go from there, is, how does your family structure and approach to parenting inform those moments of pause or silence in the play? And I noticed that there were moments specifically when a Black mother might have been challenged on something she thought or said, or an action, past or present. And that might not be that place that you sort of ruminated on, but it was just so glaring to me. So whoever wants to start. Great.
I can start. Nicole, were you about to start? Oh, okay. And I should say, I'm a very new parent. My son is 8 months old. And so I wrote this like when he was just born, but I knew I wanted to write about parenthood and motherhood during my pregnancy, and use comedy to do so. So to answer your question, Rashida, like for me, and this is all very new, so I will be listening. My approach to parenting so far, and where the pauses comes up, like when I'm challenged, my pauses are breath. I'm a playwright and an actor by nature. I'm an artist all around. So my breath is checking myself. Is my resistance my ego? Is my resistance some like childhood trauma that has been triggered by whatever they want to suggest for my kid? And the breath is, the question is this best for my child? Does it harm my child? Like, what is it? Because like I said, I'm new, and everyone has their opinion about parenting and pregnancy. And so the little moments that have come up, just recently, one came up and I was like, oh, what is that? And it was like, will it harm my kid? No, you just don't want that to happen. Oh, okay. Well, I don't know, all right, it's okay. I had to get there. But the breath for me, the pause for me is the breath, and those questions, those very specific questions, just to myself.
Right. Okay. Nicole,
Yeah. Oh gosh, Naomi, I'm really looking forward to seeing yours. I love comedy, and my piece is a drama, and I feel like I'm always sort of a clown and trying to like figure out like, well, let me put some jokes in, but it was a real challenge to like lean in and really no, just like let people say what they need to say, let the characters speak. But in terms of the silence, I think for my characters, especially at the beginning, there's this moment where the lead character realizes that she's alone. You know, her partner is asleep, she's by herself, and she really just revels in that me time. I think for me personally, in terms of my parenting style and my how our household runs, I feel like, and a lot of parents feel this way, but like the labels and the roles, you know, the mother, partner, you know, you're an employee of something, you know, you always have. So it's like, I just hold my personal time and that silence with such, you know, I regard it so deeply, you know, I love that time. And so that's kind of reflected in a little bit in the play. And I think other times within the play, the lead character is a little bit self-centered. So I think her moments of silence are always sort of, how do I feel about this? You know, it's a very like checking in with herself, whether it's good or bad, or, you know, that's what those moments are for. And I don't think personally, I really allow a lot of time for that in my own life. And I think in some ways this character is more, she's a little further self-centered than I would ever want to be, but I think just the idea of sitting in the moment, letting it be awkward, and, you know, figuring out how do I feel about this. So it's more aspirational.
Right. Thanks for that, Nicole. Sonhara, Keenya, do you want to?
Sure. I think for me, like the silence was showing the realness, because for my motherhood journey, it was been different, even trying to conceive. And then once having my child, my husband traveled for work. And so even when COVID was happening, he was stuck in Australia. And so I'm home with a baby, you know, and trying to define what motherhood is, and realizing that motherhood is not perfect. Like we see these perfect models on TV. I remember my parents used to watch, I think it's Leave It to Beaver. You see June Cleaver, and, you know, the mom is dressed, she has on her makeup, her clothes are perfectly ironed, and realizing that that is a falsehood. And that may be what some people, what their parenting is and how their day operates, but that is a falsehood for the most part, what parenting is. It's a lot of get your hands in there and get dirty. You know, kids are acting up, you know, not acting right, babies crying in the Target line, like, you know, trying to get things done. And like, we don't see the realness of that enough. And so for me, those moments of silence was the character, and I'm still working on some of that confessional, as her just being real, like, damn, like this is harder than I thought it was going to be. And how can I really admit that with my history, with having gone so long trying to have a child? How can I admit that parenting is hard? So for me, that's what the silence is within the character.
Thank you for that. Yeah.
I think in my play, it's the silence comes in sometimes through a little bit of reflection, because the main character is an older man. He's a parent. He's a little estranged from his family, and he's not, and his daughter isn't sure how to connect with him again. I think I can relate to that because I'm currently living with my mom, taking care of, you know, an older parent. So it's a strange dynamic. So the silence comes in there. And then on the other end, it also comes in with the younger mother, because she's trying to deal with this grief, but she doesn't, this is something that she doesn't know how to navigate, this new world that she's been thrown into. And it's really not part of who she is, but she's trying to, there's times in silence, I think, that she's just trying to find her footing.
Yeah. Um, I know this panel is not for me to get all into the individuals, but then I have so many questions for each of you on your specific plays. But I'm glad, thank you for sharing, first, all of you, thank you for sharing, including thinking through your personal background and how that's impacting how you're thinking about this. KEENYA, you actually just mentioned something that the next place I wanted to go, and that's around the generational shift. And so all four plays engage in some way the complex relationships that exist across generations with regards to ideas about parenting, as well, and the parenting's relationship to larger society, right? So how we do and raise our children, and what we are looking for them to take out into the world, what we're interested in, protecting them from, all of those things. Can you speak about what you saw as an important point to communicate about generational differences or sameness about parenting within your plays? I thought this was an important question, given the moment we're in, where there's so much conversation about breaking generational curses, and for us to really be conscious parents, having like there's a gentle parenting movement, the conscious parenting movement, right? There's these different, and in general, the Black parenting movement, right? And how we see ourselves in there. But I know even for myself, I struggle with that, with my family, with my mom, with my dad, and
Yeah. Go ahead.
I'm sorry.
Okay. I was just gonna say more so about occupations. So being an artist and then making the sacrifice to step away from that, right? One of us, especially during COVID, someone's gonna have to be home, right? So it's gonna be me. And so I feel like the woman, the mom, most of the time makes that sacrifice, and then how other people will judge you, like, oh, you don't have a job. Like the stay-at-home mom role is not a job. And so if I look back at generations, like my grandmothers were stay-at-home parents, like they were taking care of multiple kids, like 5 and 6 kids, and then took care of all the grandkids. And I feel like there never was a judgment call about you're a stay-at-home parent, you're not doing anything, versus like my mom's generation, most of them went back to work. They were the career driven era where they were trying to, make a living and support the household and help with the household. And I don't feel like my parents judged me for that, but I definitely saw, some people's, oh my God, she's not working, or she's at home with the kid, or does she have a job? It's like, yes, this is a job. Like, this is like a full-time job. And I don't know if you, like, during COVID, you couldn't get childcare, you couldn't get those things. And I definitely feel like, if we need to get back to some of that, just basics of, this is a job. And if you go back to history, and even like grandparents, like they were home with their children, taking care of their children. So I just feel like there's a judgment call when it comes to that, like being a parent is not a job.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think for the differences between the generations, a lot of times it just comes down to communication. So the way that I tried to show it was through, the main character, Joe. He ends up talking to the child who was murdered. Like he comes back to haunt him, and they find out that he has a lot more in common with him than he thought, and that he has a lot to learn from him, a lot more to learn from him than he thought. And I think sometimes as children, as we get older and we have these aging adults, we sometimes forget that they're humans, they make mistakes, they live life, they love, we hold parents at a different, almost at this higher standard than we do everyone else, from a child's point of view. And just knowing that they can make mistakes, but they can also learn, and they can grow still, even at an older age.
Because my play really is such a specific central theme in Theresa, this generational situation, that I think like even the thesis of Theresa is kind of like it takes a village. That's kind of like how my upbringing was. That's how I hope that my kids' upbringing will be. And I think Keenya, am I pronouncing that right? What you said about communication is so vital because for me, over and over right now, I'm telling my mother that the way you raise me is just different from the way I plan on raising my kid, but not wrong. I respect you. I honor you. The only reason I have the freedom or like these options is because you raised me the way you did. And there are things I will take from my upbringing and I'll give it to him. And there are things that I won't, that I'll do differently. But I'm not like, it's the communication for me of like, this is just different way. And like, you know, she had me later in life, and even now she's like, we'll butt heads a little bit, and I'll just say that's not what I want to do. I like something came up with like colors and gender, and I said, I can't. That's not how I live my life, and I can't have that in my child's life. And I'm very liberal in my thinking about gender and fluidity and a lot of things. And so she was like, oh, okay. Like, and she would say, like, I'm trying, you know, and I'm trying. And for me, that means everything. It's the respect. I want her to know I respected how she raised me. I'm just going to do things differently based on who my kid is and the time in which I will be raising him.
Yes. Thanks for that, Naomi. Thank you. Nicole, did you want to respond? Okay.
Yeah, I was just thinking, generational differences. I feel like, everybody wants the best for their kids. But everybody has a different way of going about it. And the norms in one generation versus another generation, Sonhara, you were talking about how like it was normal to stay at home a couple of generations ago, and it would actually be weird for you to be going to work. And then this generation, it's sort of flipped, and we all try to say, oh, it's okay, but there is still that slight, what else you do, like that thing. I mean, and with my play specifically, it's set in the 80s around my mother's generation, like just before she had me. And she had another child who was like a teenager at the time, my older sister. And this is loosely what this is based on. And in the play, her mother is like raising her oldest daughter. And she keeps sort of justifying that because she's like, well, they get along better. We always butt heads, but they get along better. And the idea that the other kid is just more complacent than the lead character, that her and her mother would butt heads just because they literally just had different views of the world and different ideas of what success was. And so I don't know, I think I like playing with that idea of like, oh, sometimes there's just different compatibility among different people, regardless of generation,
Right. Yeah. Thank you for that. So one of the things I noticed in your conversations, I think that we can think about those generational conversations across different groups of people, right? And everyone's sort of contending with that. So then I'm reading these plays in 2022. And I in my sort of like research scholar capacity, I look at social movements, and I'm interested in the ways in which Black women in particular are working to politically organize themselves, right? So I'm very much, we are a part of living in and the ongoing era of Black Lives Matter. And so any work produced by Black folks consciously or unconsciously in this moment, right, there's some kind of shaping going on, right, with this larger movement. So that's where this next question comes from, right? Can you talk a little bit about the era of Black Lives Matter and how it might inform your storytelling on Black mothering and parenting? And do you feel as if there are certain stories that are more pressing to tell? And I will say, again, there's the themes throughout all of the plays. I think your play in particular, Keenya, stood out to me with Black Lives Matter, given the subject matter and where you're based, and just thinking about the sort of some of the real stories that come out of that area. So I kind of put you on the spot to start first because I was thinking that question. I sort of had the opposite emotions than Naomi's play with your play for those obvious reasons, given what your play is about. So can you start us off with that, Keenya?
Sure. I think with my play, it's Black Lives Matter is sometimes it's a topic that sometimes we don't want to discuss. Like I don't want to say I want it to be over, but I want it to be over because it's draining. I want it to be over because I want us to get past it. And it just seems like it's something that in this society, we just can't get past it. But at the same time, so I want it to be told, but I don't want it to be traumatizing in a way where it's showing where we're having to relive it so much. So I tried to, it's funny because I started this play from a 10-minute short in 2015. And it was, very short, very it was only 10 minutes and just ended kind of abruptly. And it didn't really do justice to the movement. It didn't do justice to the characters in the play or to anybody really watching the play or reading the play. And I wanted it to come from a place of how do we move on from here? How do we heal? So, and I think that's something that Black Lives Matter is trying to do, trying to move past it, trying to get to healing. But then there's another, part of society that just things keep happening, and it keeps putting us back into this place of how do we change policy? How do we move on? How do you organize, and what do you do to move past this? It's a place of feeling. And I think that's how the mother in this play feels at one point, is helpless. Because as a parent of 3 children, you shouldn't have to try to fit into your schedule. How do I write to Congress? How do I organize? How do I do, we just want to go out and vote and live our lives and be normal people, and if it's something where we have to organize and do something, okay, cool. I want to organize at the parent-teacher meeting. I want to organize for my community, for my society. I shouldn't have to organize because I'm trying to fight for my child to be able to live. Right. That's something that we should inherently have, but we don't. So hopefully, with the Black Lives, hopefully it shows that in the play. I know that's a lot, but hopefully it comes from a place of trying to heal. It doesn't talk too much about organizing or how to organize it, because everything in the play is happening right then and there, and it's all kind of fresh, and they're just trying to heal.
Right. Thanks for that. Thanks.
I can
go ahead, Naomi. Yeah,
jump in next because you said it was the opposite reaction to mine, the juxtaposition. I think for me personally, comedy is my love language. That's just how I approach life a lot. There's been a lot of pain, and I think for me in my personal life, I have to really balance it out to like remain sane. And so in this, and as an actor, I've been a vessel. I was in like What to Send Up When It Goes Down, and Alicia Harris is a brilliant playwright who is just completely addressing Black Lives Matter, the movement. And I knew in my play in THERESA, I wanted levity and I wanted to focus on Black joy, because I don't think there'll be a scarcity of Black pain. And I think that the plays that talk more explicitly about Black Lives Matter are vital and so important. And that's not my lens in which I chose to tell this particular story. I swung all the way to farce, to satire, hoping that people will go from like, ha 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 to and like really hear what I'm trying to say. But I think as an artist and as an actor in particularly, I've been a vessel for a lot of plays with Black Lives Matter themes, and that's weighed so heavily on my heart. But that's my job as an actor. And in this precise role as a playwright, I wanted to use this opportunity, like this specific, Black motherhood and parenting new play festival opportunity, to go so far on the other side, because I knew other people would do that beautiful and difficult work of the other part of it, so that there can be a balance, because there is Black joy and Black pain in our lives, our Black lives, and I just wanted to be a voice that really was like shouting Black joy in the midst of all the other true, real voices talking about the lived Black pain that we experience. So with THERESA, I'm hoping that it, you can see it, and like showing Black people, these queer Black people, these young and old Black people living these lives, like it matters, like you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
I just hope that it's doing some of that societal and political work, even within our own community, like a healing, like an acceptance and love. So that's kind of how THERESA, to me, relates to the Black Lives Matter movement.
Thanks, Naomi.
I think for this work, because it is a comedy / confessional, I don't feel like I so much delved into that, but this is, most of my work is very heavy, very drama, focused on really humanizing Black people, because I feel like that's not done enough. And I think once we are humanized and people see us as real people, then I feel like things can get better. Just if you watch the news every night, especially here in Atlanta, like everyone on the news who are committing crimes are Black men or Black boys. That's what they're showing us, right? So when people see us, they're automatically either put off or scared or whatever is going through their minds, because they've seen these images. And so for me, it's always about humanizing us, humanizing the characters, so people know that we're not just one dimensional. We're multi-dimensional. And I think that's so important with any characters, is humanizing us and them.
Yeah, I feel like piggybacking off of that, because my main character is, like I said, she's a little self-centered. She's a little messy. She's messy. She's super messy. And the topic of abortion comes up. And, we all know current situation. And I started this piece before all of that. And my instinct was to make her less messy, to therefore make her more deserving of access to something like that. And I think I love what you're saying about humanizing, because just because somebody is messy doesn't mean they don't deserve to be treated with respect or treated as a full human being. And And so in that sense, I still don't feel like I'm being that bold necessarily, but in terms of adding to the movement, but I definitely feel like that's what I would love to see more variety in who people are. It's like, yeah, there's, you know, even the best people got these little bits that are just not cute, but they still deserve to be treated with respect. So.
Absolutely. Thanks so much for that, Nicole. I'm thinking about, there's something that each one of you said that is also informing, again, why I thought about this question. So I think even when I was thinking about the question, I wasn't thinking about, you know, explicitly in the movement, although KEENYA, there's a moment of where you know, like, exactly what the reference is, right? In terms of, like, you know, to Black Lives Matter. But I think somehow you brought up the humanizing aspect. And for me, when I think about sort of the goals of the movement, right? So there's the pain piece of the movement, Naomi, right? And sort of what brings us there. And then there's what comes out of it in terms of the goal, as well as what the movement has allowed us to now talk about more freely, including having messy characters and messy folks. And that's the nature of being human, right? We all get a little messy. And I love what you just said, Nicole. And it is something I actually really appreciated about your character, as even as we were like, she's messy, like, she's messy, because I was like, like, I felt myself getting an attitude with her, but also liking her, right? And also wanting to be like, do I have the audacity to do that? I'm just gonna, you know, let me just be here and say this to him, like, oh, okay. So I can hear that, and I was thinking about the humanization piece and for you, SONHARA, and I identified so much with your mother there, and just thinking through just being tired. Like, I'm just so tired. I'm actually a solo mom. I didn't mention that. So I'm a solo mom of this toddler. And so I can appreciate, you know, having someone come in to try to help, and just, you don't want to hear what they have to say because you're doing the best you can, right? So it's just like, okay, you know, thanks. Are you gonna watch him for a second, or? So I really appreciate all of your comments, and for me, when I think about Black Lives Matter, I think about that juxtaposition of pain and joy, right? And that is part of, you know, for me as an African American, is thinking about the legacies of Black people, period, right? In our struggles, there's always joy, right? And though we know the media is not going to tell the story for it, you know, so we have to tell our stories. And so I'm so glad to that you all are doing that work. So one of the last questions in thinking about telling those stories, right? Part of telling those stories, I know for me is, and sort of thinking about my goal as a parent, is that I want life to be better for my child, in terms of the society that he's growing up in, right? I want it to be safer, not just like better and just like brand, you know, just sort of esoteric way. Like, I want him to be safe. I don't want to have to, he's in daycare, and I'm a part of a community that has had to start a racial equity team at the daycare, you know? And so it's moments, and because I live in a predominantly white area. And so it's that I'm grateful that a Black Lives Matter exists, because I'm the one Black parent on it, but because of Black Lives Matter and the awareness, there are other people that see the necessity of being good allies, you know, and forming that. So my last question, and we can sort of, in thinking about that, because I'm talking about schooling and sort of, you know, what it means to have life better for him. What societal structures and policies would you like to be in place for Black mothers and parents to raise healthy Black children? Healthy, safe, healthy in all its capacities.
This is where this critical race theory, you know, educating people, like, you know, that part of what KEENYA was saying. It's like, I don't want to have to explain everything to everybody all the time. Right. Like, let this be part of you know, history and understanding the full context of everything that's happening. I feel like that would just having everybody on the same page at minimum. I mean, and I know that like a policy like that probably, I don't, you know, obviously it's created more drama than anything, but just having people, at least having that be the baseline.
I agree with that so much. And I think our society tend to overlook children and tend to look at them as not being capable of learning, or I don't know if it's like they just want to protect them. I don't understand it. But children can learn at leaps and bounds way faster than we can. So if you start teaching children at a young age about empathy, like children know about pronouns and get it, where adults don't. They see nothing wrong with they, them. They see nothing wrong with she. Like, they adapt, they learn. So if we teach them the history of America, the real history, and teach them how to be empathetic to each other, they get it in ways that we could never. So that's what I agree with Nicole. Like, that's what I want. I want them to teaching is the way to go, but start that teaching at a young age. They can start it in pre-K, start it in their homes, but definitely keep it going in the school system.
I'm going to chime in on that. I definitely would say education. And my daughter just turned 3 a couple of days ago. And so I'm kind of like, I was researching schools. I did find a school for her to go to, but it's still, I'm in that space where she'll be like one of the only Black kids there, you know, and it's like trying to find the right place to put your child where they're going to be safe and get the best education, but also a place where they're going to identify, right? You know, where they're going to learn things about themselves, where they're going to see themselves, a reflection of themselves. And I feel like there isn't enough of that. So even maybe some Black philanthropists, maybe they can put some money together and come up with some sort of schooling education programs to where we are represented, where there are education programs laid out for us. Because I was in college, thank God I went to HBCU. That's where I learned my Black history, because I also have predominantly gone to white schools. And I don't want that for my child. I don't want her to have to be 18 years old to actually fully understand history, and things that they taught us are actually not true. So I would say education, focus on education and changing that.
I mean, y'all, you know, I'm just absorbing this because he's so little in school and all of this. I'm like, all right, all of my schools are the only one. Like, I agree. I'm learning and I'm listening to all of you. When I originally thought of this question, it will show that I'm a new parent because y'all are right. Like, you'd be like, education. I was like, longer parental leave. Like, I didn't get, like, I had to give it to myself. And when he was born, it was like, I wasn't getting paid. It was just like hard, you know, it was just like, and my partner took it as well. So both of us were at home and I was like, whew, how are we going to eat? But it was, you know, it worked out. It worked out. And then so you should know that my play Theresa, I am Theresa and NICOLE. So please don't judge me. I am woo, I'm all of that. So I was like, yoga in schools, like empathy training, um, like all of this, like hippy dippy stuff, which is who I am. But I 100% agree with education because it's everybody, you know, it's like the people, because I was thinking about police brutality, but there's two sides to it. There's the police that's educating the young people who will grow up and become part of that police force. And like, if you just all so, it's just so beautifully spoken, and just, I'm encouraged by all of you, because it is education. If that could be a policy change. And like you said, Nicole, it has gotten so, politicized and all of this stuff, but that is where we start. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah. So, and I just want to, first of all, thank you for all of that. And I also want to just highlight, I heard other institutions in there because Naomi, I agree with you. I think that like parental leave, right, is important for raising healthy babies, because if parents are not healthy, right, if parents are not able to afford and care for, right, so if they're not medical institutions that are there and accessible for us, right, if our different, you know, jobs, organizations, whether it's private or public, are not, you know, giving us the kinds of insurances, or providing, I should say, there's no giving if you're working, right? Like, if providing the kinds of resources for us to be healthy, you know, present parents for our children, right? Then there's just so much. The education system, absolutely, but there's layers to that, right? You know, and thinking through. And so I yes, and Naomi, when you start looking for schools, that was so stressful, right? I mean, when we start thinking about where are our children going to be, you know, 6 to 8 hours a day away from us, that is such a nerve-wracking process. I have to start it over again, you know, him leaving daycare and, you know, having to do school of choice and all these kinds of things. And there's no conversations about that. There's no real education of parents about that, right? I'm like, there's so much I'm just learning on the fly, right? And I'm fairly astute and I have access to some resources. And I'm like, I didn't even know that was a thing, you know? So I really do think having infrastructure that's there to support parents, right, is important, right? And that's absolutely connected to how we educate society, right, on the role of parents and the role of children. I think, Keenya, you said you know, there's this idea of who children are, and, you know, we sort of just bypass them. And so even when policies are made, they're not really made for them. Even when they're talking about education, right, they're not talking about the children per se, right? The CRT, for example, right? And people who are anti-CRT who don't even really know what it is, right? They're not about the children. Because if you talk to children in different capacities from different places, will tell you, no, I don't think it's right that, you know, people should be discriminated against, right? And then it's up to the adults around them to share their knowledge and their ideas. And so I just appreciate all of your comments about that. And I also saw just that moment where you're like, you know, you knew what that was, because we've all had to sort of think about that thing that has made it a little difficult for us. And when I think about policies and institutions, I always start personal and think about what's been hard to navigate, and how, if it were better, right, I could be an even better parent for my child. So I just want to, those are the sort of end of my official questions, but I also just wanted to make a little space if you have any closing comments about what it just means to, you know, parent in this moment, and something that you're thankful for. Let's end on joy. I'm taking your cue, Naomi. And I just want to say I'm, you know, again, thankful for being invited to be a part of this festival. When I met Garlia and she told me about this festival, I was just like, there's so many, and we'll be talking. So there's so many reasons why, you know, I thought it was just divine that I met her. So I'm just so happy that this festival exists. I'm so happy for you, the stories that you all are producing, and I can't wait to see them. I can't wait to see it. Yeah, so thank you for you know, sharing this space with me, and yeah, and my baby sleeps, so I'm thankful for that as well.
I'm grateful to be a mom. I'm grateful to be a mom, grateful to be on this journey. Again, like I mentioned, I tried for a long time to have a kid, so I'm grateful to be a parent, and I realize that even when you're grateful for something doesn't mean that you can't have moments of just venting or feeling unsure of yourself or feeling like, oh, did I, was I supposed to do this for her or do that for her? There are moments when you can doubt yourself, but you can still be grateful and thankful for your journey.
I'm really thankful, one, just to be in the presence of so many great moms. I am not a mom. I tried for a little while, but I am the best aunt in the world. So I already know that. Like my nieces and nephews are my world. So I'm thankful for them, thankful for all of my family. And just really thankful to be in the presence of so many awesome moms. Moms are great. Y'all don't get enough recognition. I agree with Naomi about I completely forgot to say that, but I did mean to bring that up about just giving moms and parents just space when they are going through getting their child, having a child, childbirth, adoption, whatever. And then as they're growing up, just giving them grace. Give yourself grace. So, thanks.
I too am happy to be in the presence of all you beautiful, beautiful people. I'm grateful to be a mom, and I'm really, he just started sleeping kind of through the night, so super grateful for that. Although I didn't mind him sleeping in the bed. I was like, I could do this for a long time. But my partner on the other hand was like, he got to go. I said, okay, all right. So the big thing I'm really thankful for, even more than him sleeping through the night, is just his laugh, his joy. I love making that little guy laugh, and he smiles in his sleep right now, and I just think it's so beautiful, and I want to do the best that I can to ensure that he can smile for as long as possible.
Yes, baby smiles are the best. Oh, and those snuggles. I just now you mentioning that, I'm just like, woo! I'm trying to have a 3-year-old and a 7-year-old, almost 4-year-old, just like you, Rashida. And so we're out of that baby phase, but things that I'm grateful for. I am very grateful for this festival. When I saw a piece of it last year, I think I saw like a little piece of it, and then this year I was just like, is this for me? Is this just for me? And I just felt, it's just it's so amazing that like Black Motherhood Playwright Fest. When I saw those 3 words together, I was just like, it could have just said the Nicole Festival, sign up here. So I am so grateful that this exists. I feel grateful that I'm, surrounded by other very talented people. And I do suffer from imposter syndrome. So literally when I got the email, I was like, wasn't there another Nicole on this list? I'm sure they meant this for somebody else. Because I'm crazy. But yeah, very, very grateful for this.
Thank y'all so much. And Keenya, I just want to give you props because it took me a while to become a mother, and I was an auntie, and auntie, there's so much parenting that goes on as an aunt. And so I just want to give you a shout out. It's just like, you're in good company because I know the work that goes into being an aunt. So yeah, well, thank y'all, everyone. This is lovely. I'm so full. I'm so happy that we had this conversation. And yes, it's for you, Nicole. All you. Thank you.